Hello everyone. Episode 4 was a doozy, huh? I've said previously that Volume 9 has just been getting better and better with every episode, and that is still the case. I'd give this episode a solid 9.5 out of 10, with half a point deducted for lack of Jean. Am I biased? Absolutely. Am I sorry? Not even a little bit. Before we get started, I just want to say thank you to everyone who has subscribed to my channel so far. We've hit over 200 subscribers, and my goal by the end of the year is to have at least 1,000 subscribers. So if you enjoy this video and aren't subscribed, then consider hitting that subscribe button to see my videos as soon as they go up. And while you're there, give the video a like as well. Every little bit helps the channel grow and reach more people. The episode starts off adorably, with Ruby looking for the curious cat and calling out for the kitty. You never realize how badly you need to hear Ruby say kitty until your ears have been graced by it. Little locates the cat's butt, and the rest of him pops out on the other side of the road and saunters over to reattach itself to his other half. You know, as you do. Ruby asks what the cat prefers to go by, and he responds that going by belongs to the days and the years, but that he is indeed a cat most curious, so the curious cat will suffice for a name. Ruby tells him that they need to get to the giant tree, but that nothing they've done has gotten them any further. Weiss chimes in that it seems like they're even farther, but Yang reminds Weiss that's probably because they're about 6 inches tall. The cat says that yes, going to the tree is quite impossible. Unless they're him, that is. He says that it's a matter of perspective. Perhaps that's more literal than it initially seems to be. We've seen multiple times that linear space and perhaps even linear time are not a hard and fast rule in the ever after. It's possible that in order to reach the tree, Team RWBY needs to stop seeing the tree as a physical location to reach, or perhaps I'm reading too much into a single sentence. Ruby asks if he couldn't take them to the tree since he's been there before, but the cat says that's the exact reason he has no interest in going back. No sense in seeing a sight already seen, after all. Blake begs him to help, saying that he helped Alex, and this gets the cat's attention again, asking them how they know Alex. Weiss tells him that she wrote a book about her adventures in the ever after when she returned to Remnant, and the curious cat takes a great interest in this, asking about the book and how well liked it is. And about Little as well, who is fortunately spoken for by Blake. Blake asks for some time to talk amongst themselves, and he goes chasing after a butterfly, leaving them to talk. Weiss asks if he isn't actually the constantly annoying cat, earning Yang's approval of her pun, and Blake reminds them that just because the cat doesn't want to go back to the tree, doesn't mean he can't be lured there. And they have all kinds of stories from their own world to keep him focused on them. We then see Ruby convince the cat to help them reach the tree in exchange for information about their own world to sate his curiosity, as well as showing him her scroll. This fascinates the cat, and he winds up taking several selfies, which I'm sure will go a long way in convincing anyone who doubts their story about the ever after when they return to Remnant. With the cat's attention secured, they continue their journey. However, they underestimate just how tiring it can be to sate the curiosity of a creature with an endless thirst for knowledge. I have to say, I like the little self-jabs RWBY put into this scene. Speaking as a very amateur writer myself, link in the description below if you're interested in reading any of my fics, it's good to be able to look on your past work, see the things that could have been done better, and poke fun at it. The curious cat says that they certainly know more about the history of Remnant than Alex, who was, in his words, hilariously concerned with little things. Blake points out that she learned her lesson in the end, and the cat says that he certainly thinks so. Which is an interestingly vague way to answer that question. Before that conversation can continue, they reach the edge of the acre, and we get our first look in the show at the forest, their next destination. The forest is obviously the mushroom biome we've seen several times in the trailer, and seems to be the closest one to the tree. So theoretically, after Team RWBY makes it through the forest, they could reach the tree. Realistically, however, we know that isn't going to happen, or if they do reach the tree, they'll be turned away somehow. We're only 4 episodes in thus far, so there's bound to be a twist that stops them from getting home. As they walk towards the bridge that will take them from one acre to another, Yang comments that the ever after is put together like a bunch of mixed up puzzle pieces, and she wonders how anyone can make sense of it. The curious cat responds that each acre was made for its residents and their roles, and is surprised that Remnant isn't organized the same. Now, the wording he uses here is telling. Each acre is made for its inhabitants and their roles. Made. Which to me implies that the ever after was definitely created by something intelligent, which may be obvious, but this does lend serious credence to the theory that the ever after is another one of the brothers' experiments. Whether it came before or after Remnant remains to be seen, however. Weiss asks how long it will be until they're normal sized again, and the cat assures her that it won't be long. The garden has everything they need to make a Grogurt parfait, which tells us that much like Alice in Wonderland, food has magical properties here. So I have to wonder if we'll see one of the girls eat something that makes them grow even larger or get shrunk down again. As they cross the bridge, the cat warns them not to talk to anyone without him, and as we'll see later, there's a good reason for this warning. Blake sarcastically asks if they'll get their heads cut off if they do, and the cat laughs and says remnant folk are such troublemakers. I said this in my last video, but I'd like to reiterate it here. I think the cat may have met Jean already. As I said in my previous review of episodes 2 and 3, the cat tells RWBY that she isn't as interesting as the other ones they've met, as in more than one person. If I'm understanding correctly, that means the cat has met more than one human, or remnant folk in this case, before Team RWBY, which to me implies that the cat has at some point either met Neo or Jean or both, and I do not think it's likely that the cat has met Neo at this point, since she seems to have arrived after the Jabberwocker retreated from Team RWBY, at least as far as we can tell, and the area she arrived in doesn't seem like it would be all that interesting to the cat. Just a barren wasteland dotted with ruins and incredibly sharp blades of grass. Additionally, if Neo's arrival isn't some kind of flashback, then she arrived in the Ever After right as RWBY goes chasing after the cat after their escape from the Red Prince's castle, so he quite literally couldn't have met Neo before meeting Team RWBY. As for how the cat could have met Jean despite him falling last, as we've already seen, the Ever After doesn't play by our rules when it comes to time and space. Try to march directly to the tree and you'll be stuck in a literal loop until you stop. Despite falling together, Blake and RWBY arrived on the island apart from each other, and Neo, who fell before them, found RWBY and attacked her as they fell, but she would arrive not only much later than RWBY would, but would arrive in a very different location. Taking all of this into account, there's a very real chance that despite falling last, Jean arrived first in the Ever After. And if this is the case, then the Curious Cat could have encountered him before Team RWBY. That being said, it's anyone's guess just how much longer he's been on the island than the others. If he is indeed the Rusted Knight, either the original one or a new one, then the rusted state of his armor would imply it's been quite some time. I really hope we'll see Jean in episode 5. I need my boy. The copium can only hold me over for so long. Getting back to the actual episode, Weiss says she's sure they'll cause much less trouble when they're back to regular size, to which I say bullshit, and the cat responds that they really should be more concerned with Salem. After all, how do they plan to beat her now that she has 2 of the 4 relics she needs to destroy the world, and with Atlas fallen? This brings RWBY to a complete halt. Her face falls, and you can almost see the weight of the world settling on her shoulders. She tries to think of something to say, but can't find the words. The others are clearly concerned, but Blake gently reminds her that they shouldn't worry about Salem right now. They have enough on their plate as it is. Though it's definitely becoming clearer and clearer that RWBY needs to get a lot off her chest before this volume ends. Like how we saw in the opening, as their journey progresses, the other girls run faster and faster, but RWBY slows down more and more, and as she slows, so too do her teammates. No matter how determined they are, they can't or won't progress without RWBY right there with them. Unfortunately, while they're all distracted, the Curious Cat slips away without the girls noticing. Fortunately, Little did notice the cat leave. Unfortunately, they didn't say anything. Yang raises her voice at Little, how dare she, and Weiss laments that it was the cat they met out of all the characters in the book instead of the lively carpenter, or the rusted knight. One was sweet, the other handsome, and both had better attention spans than the cat. Yes, I am assuming that she was referring to the rusted knight when she said handsome, and yes, I am taking that as a crumb of white knight teasing. You can't stop me. Before they can go off and search for the cat, a humming resonates through the air, coming from up ahead. The girls walk up the path they're on and come across the same location we saw in the trailer, with fungus growing in planter boxes and a pile of leaves right on the road. This is the garden that the Curious Cat was leading them to. As they draw near, the pile of leaves rustle and 3 eyes peer out from within. The creature in the leaves asks RWBY what she is, and she responds that she's getting very tired of that question. Then the creature lifts itself from the leaf pile and reveals that it's a caterpillar, butterfly, person thing. The girls and Little are freaked out by it, but honestly I didn't think he looked all that scary. Maybe it's because of the shape of his face, but he just kinda looked like a kindly old man. Granted, I'm not the one looking at a caterpillar person in the face from 10 feet away, so what do I know? The caterpillar informs them that he is an herbalist, the herbalist, in fact, at least until he isn't anymore. Ruby tells him that they need help getting to the tree, and he responds that everyone needs help these days. Seems like his job might be wearing on him a bit. The herbalist, who I will refer to as Herb for the sake of time going forward, leads them into his home, which is in a giant mushroom, and just makes the entryway appear. Ruby is a bit hesitant to enter at first, and when she does, Herb remarks on this, asking again what they said they were. Ruby responds that they're huntresses, and he asks what a huntress does. Getting annoyed, she says that they fight monsters and questions why any of this matters. Herb responds that he doesn't understand why she doesn't understand, and explains that as an herbalist, it's his job to help people, to make medicines and remedies to help them on their journeys. It is what he is. And so he asks again, does she know what a huntress is, or is she guessing? Blake jumps in and says that huntresses are heroes, that they protect people who can't protect themselves. Thankful for a clear answer, Herb asks if they are good huntresses, and Ruby finds it hard to give an answer to that question. Yang interjects this time and just asks if Herb can help them or not. Frustrated, Herb says he is trying, but they're making it more complicated than it needs to be. He goes on to say that they all have their titles, their roles to play, but in order to help them become what they need to become, they need to have a better understanding of what they are now. While this may all seem like a metaphor, and to an extent it is, he also seems to be very literal here. The Ever After is obsessed with purpose, knowing what you are and what you do. Jinxie collects and sells things, the cat asks questions and seeks more knowledge, Herb aids others, and so on and so forth. In the Ever After, your purpose is your identity. It is who you are, but your purpose, and by extent you, can change. Weiss, presumably weirded out by this exchange, asks how to open the way they came in. Herb simply sighs and says that this is how a king winds up a prince. The implications there being that the Red Prince isn't just the Red King's descendant. He is in fact the Red King, reduced to a new and likely lesser form. And judging by what one of the royal guard said back in episode 3, that if it weren't for their kind, the king would still be here, Alex did something to the Red King that caused him to turn into the Red Prince, or played a role in what happened to him. Which makes the Red Prince's outburst when he realizes they're humans more interesting. He isn't simply furious because the last human that entered the Ever After did something to his predecessor, he's furious because they did something to him. I hope we'll see more of just what happened to turn the king into the prince. Perhaps Team RWBY will be able to set it right before they leave. Herb leads them into the back of his home, lamenting that his work is never done. RWBY enters behind him, and if the bead curtains didn't make it obvious enough, this is where the good kush is. Herb offers them a seat, and Team RWBY collectively remembers why you shouldn't go inside the home of strange caterpillar people. Before they can leave, Herb closes the way out behind them and tells them to answer the questions. Then, once again, he asks them the question that this volume is built on. What are you? Herb drops a handful of the leaves from the great tree into the fire burning in the middle of the room, and smoke billows and fills the room. Pack your bags, Team RWBY. You're going on a trip. As the smoke fills the room, RWBY drops to her knees and drops her teammates. The smoke surrounds each of them, cutting them off from one another as the herbalist's words echo around them. Are you sure you know? You have to be sure of what you are and what you're going to be. As Yang calls out for her teammates, she coughs and smoke pours from her mouth and pools on the ground before rising into the air and dispersing. And in its wake stands a replica of Yang. Not of who she is now, but of her younger self. Yang is understandably shocked, but her doppelganger tells her that she doesn't have to go forward. She could go back to the days when she still had both arms. Then we cut to Blake, who is also being confronted by her younger self, and is being told that she could just be human or just be a cat. And when Blake asks why she would do that, her younger self says that it's simple, easier than trying to be a bridge between human and Faunus, and taking that responsibility on herself. Then we go to Weiss, whose younger self is telling her that she could become a nobody, be free of the Schnee name and the burdens attached to it, and live without a single bit of baggage on her shoulders. And there's something very important to note about this version of Weiss. She doesn't have the scar over her left eye, the scar that Weiss acquired in her battle with the Armageddus, the one that her father put before her as a task she was supposed to lose to keep her from going to Beacon. Each of the doppelgangers asks their counterpart that isn't this what they want, for Weiss to be free. for Blake to be something simpler, and for Yang to be whole again. And all three of them, Weiss, Blake, and Yang, refuse. Yang's losses and failures have more than anything helped her grow and change as a person, becoming who she is today. If she's missing something, it isn't because she lost it, it's because she hasn't found it yet. For Blake, a simple life wouldn't be her life, her family, her friends, her culture. She belongs to them as much as they belong to her. To give that up wouldn't be simplicity, it would be betrayal. And Weiss doesn't need to be free from the burden of her name. She is the granddaughter of a hero and the child of a villain. Rip Bozo will not be missed. She is a citizen of a fallen kingdom and an heir to nothing. She is not defined by her name because she will be the one to define it. Weiss, Blake, and Yang don't need to change who they are because they know what they are. Huntresses, defenders of Remnant, protectors of the weak, and beacons of light in the darkness. But RWBY has no such answer. Weiss, Blake, and Yang know who they are because they faced their great trials. By the time they fell into the Ever After, they knew who they were. Yang had come to terms with her missing arm and her feeling of being abandoned by Blake. Blake in turn had stopped running and confronted the devil of her past. And Weiss had overcome the shadow of her father that had loomed over her for her entire life. But RWBY hasn't had that. She has not completed her great trial. She does not have an answer to the question of what are you because she does not know. Because RWBY's trial has been taking place ever since the fall of Beacon, when she made the choice to travel to Mistral and search for the ones responsible for the Vital Festival attack. From volumes 4 to 8, we see glimpses of her deeper struggles and worries. In Volume 4, RWBY is worried about her uncle and that she led Team Juniper into danger with her. In Volume 5, she reminisces on those who have died. In Volume 6, she grapples with the hopelessness of knowing that Salem cannot be killed, but that she has to be fought all the same. But it's not until Volume 7 that we see the cracks in her resolve really start to form. When Salem tells her, to her face, that Summer Rose met her fate at the hands of the greatest threat to all of Remnant. And in Volume 8, those cracks widen when RWBY learns that the Hound was a silver-eyed warrior, taken and twisted in some unknown but undoubtedly horrible process into a monster bound to Salem's will. And the understanding that this is why Salem wanted her alive, and almost certainly the fate of her mother. RWBY's great trial has been ongoing for a long time now, but it hasn't been until now that she's been forced to face it without something else getting in the way or letting her ignore it. When RWBY's doppelganger asks her if she's a huntress like the ones she read about in books, all she can say is that she doesn't know. Her doppelganger continues, saying that they always knew what to do, always saved the day, always won in the end. But life isn't like a fairy tale, and RWBY's doppelganger throws her own words she uttered to Blake so long ago back in Beacon right in her face. It's all up to her to make things better. Everything depends on her. Her sister needs her. Her friends need her. The whole world needs her to fight forever against a monster that can't be killed. The very same monster that took her mother, the woman she looked up to her whole life. But even she failed. That doesn't seem fair. In fact, none of it seems fair. When RWBY asks her doppelganger what she's supposed to do, the answer is as simple as it is chilling. She can do whatever she wants. Be whoever she wants. She doesn't even have to be Ruby Rose anymore. And this time, RWBY is asked a different question from what she is. Rather, what is she going to be? Before she can answer, the curious cat leaps in and breaks the illusion, blowing the smoke away from RWBY and the others. Herb coughs fit to hack up a lung and says that he probably used a bit too much of the good stuff. The cat approaches Herb, saying that he's supposed to help people find their way, but has lost his own. And I feel like it's worth pointing out that this is indeed what Herb was trying to do throughout his interactions with Team RWBY. He was genuinely trying to help them. He was getting frustrated with their answers because in the Ever After, purpose is everything. It defines who and what you are, the role you play, the skills you have. Every aspect of one's life in the Ever After is dictated by their purpose. It is the cornerstone of their entire existence, the foundation upon which their very beings are established. So for someone like the herbalist to have people in need of help but cannot tell him what they are, quite literally what their purpose is, then he cannot help them. That is why he pushed them to answer the questions, and why he used the smoke from the leaves to drug Team RWBY. to get the answers he needed to help them. While he admits that he took it too far, his intentions never changed. He was trying to help Team RWBY. But as it turns out, Team RWBY aren't the only ones who need a bit of help knowing who they are. The cat offers to help Herb and places his paw on him, offering a piece of his own heart to help Herb feel better. Now, I missed this before, but this is the same thing that the Curious Cat did with the Red Prince to convince him to let Team RWBY go. At the time, I just thought that it was a bit of magical flair the cat was putting on as part of his act to sway the prince over to his way of thinking. But this confirms that yes, the cat was influencing the prince to protect Team RWBY, and does so again here to basically make Herb relax and refocus. And if what the cat says is true, then he's doing more than just giving Herb a little magical assistance. He's quite literally giving a piece of his heart to him. Obviously, the Curious Cat is more than just an inquisitive feline. His role in the Ever After clearly goes much deeper than that, and makes me wonder what exactly his purpose is. Perhaps his job is to supervise the Ever After and its denizens and make sure everyone stays balanced and in control, and does so by giving a part of himself to someone who has fallen out of balance with their purpose. And I can't help but wonder if his curiosity is a side effect of this. If what he says is true, then the cat gives away a piece of his heart every time he does that. So perhaps by exploring, finding new things, asking questions, and learning as much as he can, he replenishes himself in some way. We'll have to wait and see what we learn in the next episode and hope this gets expanded on. Herb apologizes, saying he's always been a bit of a workaholic, and then a fucking hole in the ground opens up under him and he vanishes into it. Team RWBY stares on in what can only be described as horror at the spot where the caterpillar man that drugged them used to be. But they don't need to worry, because Little woke up from their nap and found the cat. So I'm honestly not sure what the hell happened with Herb there at the end. Either the Ever After just up and ate him, or he opened up a hole under himself for whatever reason. Maybe to take him back to his lab to create the Grogurt parfaits that 3 of Team RWBY needs. The thing is, that's what I want to say is the case, because that makes the most sense to me. We know that Herb can open and close entryways in his home at will, and this seems like it's no different from that. But at the same time, the Curious Cat's words before he vanishes are very telling. He tells Herb that he's done. What did he mean by that? Did he mean that Herb was no longer, well, Herb? Is he no longer the herbalist because he took things too far? Or did the cat simply mean that Herb needed to take a break and center himself for a bit? I have no idea, and am about as confused as Team RWBY is on that front. Whatever the case, I hope that the girls will be back to their normal sizes by the end of the next episode. With Volume 9 only being 10 episodes long, having Weiss, Blake, and Yang tiny for more than 1 or 2 episodes could get old quick. In my last review, I said that I believed that Jean would make his first appearance in this episode. Obviously, that didn't happen. And with every passing episode without so much as a glimpse of him, my desperation grows ever greater. The copium can only help so much, I need my boy back. In all seriousness, with every passing episode, the likelihood of Jean making his appearance increases steadily. I just hope it won't be too long. Episode 5 is going to be the halfway point of the volume, so that would be a pretty good one to finally bring him back in. Because he has issues he needs to face. Though even as I'm saying that, I'm wondering if we'll have a chance for Jean to actually come to terms with and start to heal from Penny's death. I don't want to rule out any possibilities, but with Volume 9 focusing on Ruby's journey of What Are You, I wonder if we'll have time for Jean's this volume. Well, Jean is my absolute favorite character in RWBY, shocking, I know. I've been loving what they're doing with Ruby and the struggles she's been going through in this volume, and I wouldn't want to take away from that. And of course, there's still the fact that RWBY doesn't know the exact details of how Penny died, just that she did, meaning that when she learns that Jean took her life, that's going to be a massive blow for RWBY. And I think she's going to lash out at Jean, physically, verbally, or both, for it. And if she does, I certainly couldn't blame her for it. They did so much to save Penny and to give her a new lease on life, and for that to reach such a quick and painful end is going to hurt RWBY in many ways. On top of the fact that Penny is gone, this time for good, it's also the fact that once again, RWBY failed. Her plans didn't work out the way she wanted them to, and now she's lost someone dear to her. And I wouldn't be surprised if in the moment that she learns the whole story of what happened, that she blames Jean for it. Now, that is not to say that Jean is to blame for Penny's death. That blame lies solely on Cinder. But grief is not rational. RWBY's already in a bad place mentally and emotionally, and if she learns what Jean did, then it's only going to make things even worse for her, and it could be the moment that she well and truly breaks. RWBY and Jean have been steadfast friends all throughout the show. He was her first friend at Beacon, they were both made leaders of their teams, he and his team followed her across an entire continent, and he has had her back every step of the way, which is going to make the truth hurt even more for both of them. It will be the moment, I think, that their friendship ends, at least for a time. I think that once RWBY has her break and pulls herself back together, she'll understand that Jean's decision hurt him even worse than it did her, and he was put in a no-win situation. But that's not the same as Jean coming to terms with it. At the end of the day, it was his sword in his hands that did the deed, and that is going to scar him. I want to do a whole video wholly dedicated to this topic at some point. We'll just have to see if I can find the time before the volume ends. But it is my firm belief that after the end of Volume 8, Jean is going to have to change as a character. While he's gone through more growth than anyone else in the show, we still see moments where the goofball dork he was back in Volume 1 shines through. After Penny, that cannot be the case anymore. I'm not saying I want to see Jean turn into complete edgelord. Gods, that's the last thing I want. But those moments of goofy comedy relief have to come to an end. That's just not who he is anymore, and it can't be ever again. In a way, that part of Jean died with Penny, and what's left is going to be a lot more serious and stern than what we're used to seeing from him, but have gotten glimpses of since Volume 4. Honestly, I could go on and on about this, but I'm going to stop myself here. This video is going to be long enough as it is, and I want to try to get it out before Episode 5 airs. What did you think of Episode 4? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and remember to like and subscribe to see more content like this. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and never forget to keep moving forward.